friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Ellenboss, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Hey everyone, welcome in. Today we're going to be talking about the differences between chamomile and catnip. Now, I always love this way of looking at plants. You know, you can think of it as like compare and contrast, kind of like the old Venn diagrams where you have the two overlapping circles, and in the middle you see what is similar about the plants, and then on the sides you see what is different. And you know, for me, I think one of my sorry, I'm out of breath. I just ran up from the garden. It's like 100 degrees outside. But I think one of the things that I love about learning about plants are stories and examples, and like getting a real sense of how the plants, like the plants as separate personalities, and you know, really getting to know their characters. So I went down to the garden, which is why I'm kind of huffing and puffing to pick these plants for you. If you're listening to this on a podcast, you won't be able to see the plants I'm holding up. But if you're watching it on YouTube or other visual platforms, I'm just holding up in one hand, I've got chamomile, and in the other hand, I have catnip. And so what I'm going to be sharing with you today is the difference between these two. And sorry, I didn't have my mic very close. The difference between these two and how to use them. You know, what like when is it a catnip moment and when is it a chamomile moment? Now, how I've learned about these distinctions come from personal experience, you know, using these plants for over 15 years. In the case of actually both of these plants, I've been using them longer than I've actually been an herbalist or a trained herbalist, just as home use and also growing them. And it also comes from my studies with Matthew Wood, who is an incredible herbalist who, for many years, lived in Minnesota, and who I feel very grateful to have a personal friendship with and ongoing correspondence. So I am looking forward to sharing more about these plants. So before I do that, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do that. It's super easy to do. You can do it right now. Just click on the subscribe button, click yes for notifications, and you'll get to know when I have more videos coming up. And of course, please like if you like it. So let's start with what is similar about these two herbs. So what is similar, what happens in the middle of that Venn diagram, is that these are both nervines. And so nervine just means that it affects the nervous system. And there's really three different types of nervines. There's relaxing nervines, stimulating nervines, and then there is like sedating nervines, like kind of almost like hypnotic, or like soporific is a word that's used. So both of these herbs fall into the category of relaxing nervines. So both of these herbs relax the central nervous system. They're both good for sleep and assisting sleep. They're both good for calming down anxiety. They're both really good for stress. They're both good for tension that's stored in the stomach or like the digestive system. So they both work really well if you're the type of person when you get stressed and anxious, you get butterflies in your stomach, or you know your digestion starts to get off track. Both of these can work really well, and they're both safe for children. So that's another overlapping piece that's really helpful, is that I've used both of these in my girls as a tea when they were tiny, like itty bitty babies. I would just make a tea and then give them it as droppers full. And I would also use this in a bath for my kids. So what I would do with my girls is once they started eating solid foods, I was like, okay, so they're game for herbs, because foods are full of other plant chemicals. And so it was around that time I started saying, okay, I can give these to my girls internally, which I think, if my memory is correct, I think it was like around 6 months old. I started giving them teas. Before that, I would use herbs in baths so that they would soak it in through their skin. So safe for babies, both safe during breastfeeding for mothers. Yeah, safe during pregnancy. Catnip, because it has some stronger volatile oils, it's safe during pregnancy, but I would be more moderate and maybe more like a little lighter in dosages for catnip. But they both work really well as a tea. They both work really well as a tincture. They're dosed pretty similarly, in terms of how they help with common ailments, but there are some differences. So let's get into that now. I'm going to start with chamomile. Let me hold up my chamomile flowers. They are so pretty. So chamomile is in the Asteraceae family, the aster family, and this includes a lot of our other medicinal plants like echinaceas in the Asteraceae family, dandelion, chicory, and then a lot of plants that have this particular flower arrangement where they have the ray flowers on the outside and the disc flowers in the middle. What's also different about chamomile is the type of anxiousness that it serves. And this is what I learned from Matthew Wood. So, Matthew Wood said that the chamomile type person is the whiny child. And this isn't necessarily a whiny child, as in like in a child body, but this is the whiny child that shows up in an adult body too, because there can be whiny children in their 80s. So if the type of the way that the person works through their anxiety or processes their upset is by talking and talking and more talking. If they're a talking processor, if something upsets them and they have to talk about it right away, then they're probably more of the chamomile type. And, if you look at the flower, it's very showy. The flower, it has, it's very open. It's like, here I am, look at me, I'm right here. These ones are kind of hanging down a little bit, only because it was growing on the ground. It was like laying down. So the flowers they looked more like this when they were growing. So the heads don't droop, but they actually stick up and they reach towards the sun. They're very open, very expressive. And so the chamomile type, when stressed, is expressive. So you can think about, yeah, that is the personality type for chamomile. They really let things move through them, but they might need help calming and kind of quieting down that need to express and share. So let's contrast that with catnip. So catnip is in the mint family, which is the home to peppermint and lemon balm and a lot of other plants. It has not very the flowers are more tubular. So if you can see them in the camera, they're more closed. They almost create like a funnel where they draw back inward. And so they, rather than being like open, like everything's so bad, let me tell you all about my terrible day. The catnip personality is more bottled up. They keep things in until they explode. And so it's funny because I was at the Good Medicine Confluence in Colorado where I was teaching this past week. I shared this with my students because we were talking about creating custom formulations. And so we were looking for a nervine for one of the students. We were doing a practice run, and one of the students offered herself so that we could formulate for her. And one of the first things she said that I tend to bottle things up and then I just explode. And that's just my pattern. I can't help it. And the first thing that came into my head was like, she's a catnip person. We got to get her some catnip. So catnip is really, really good for that. It's also really good for, tension in the stomach that you hold. It's like a tight ball. The chamomile person is a little bit more like butterflies in the stomach, but then they express it so it moves pretty quickly. The catnip type of person bottles it up, holds it up, and it becomes like a knot in the stomach. And things get really kind of stuck until they're not stuck and they explode. And so that's when you would look for catnip, is when you have that repression and then explosion type of pattern. And that can be all ages. I have two daughters, 7 and 4, soon to be 5. But my older one is definitely the chamomile type. I mean, she is expressive. If something's bothering her, she will talk about it, which is, it's wonderful. So I support her. And then there's a moment where it's like, okay, we're starting to get obsessive. It's time to start to let this thing go and start to just relax and move forward. My younger daughter, she is the bottle up and explode type. So, for her, it's like I can see things starting to build and build and build. And then there'll just be something that seems very inconsequential that will be the trigger. And then it's like full blown on the floor, tantrum at the restaurant, everyone looking at you, and she just won't, she's just exploding, on the ground. It's terrible. So I should carry some chamomile in my purse, like a little tincture to kind of drop dose her, even if I maybe just a spray, because she wouldn't open her mouth, I'm sure, if I asked her to in those moments. But maybe I can just douse her with like a mist of a catnip spritzer to kind of help her, like, let it go, let it go. And even better, prophylactically, which is what I was thinking for the student, was like, okay, you need to take a little chamomile every day to help you not hold things in for so long so that they do that. Like it's better to take catnip as a prophylactic in those cases, and chamomile too. If you relate to either one of those types, you might want to include this in your daily blend, right? Just to keep things moving more even. So those are the main differences between the two plants. They both are good. I would say one thing that's a little bit different is that chamomile is a bit of a stronger anti-inflammatory. So it's really good if there's heat and inflammation, skin issues, whereas catnip is a more of an anti-spasmodic. So it's better for like muscle cramps, spasming, stomach cramps, things like that. Also, they are both a little bit bitter, so they share that in common. But I do think that in general, chamomile tends to be a little bit more bitter and sweet, whereas catnip is more bitter and acrid. And that acrid taste is often a good sign that there is antispasmodic qualities in it. So that tension, right? This is the tension part. So the catnip is more of the person that carries a lot of tension, and the chamomile is the one who maybe needs a little bit more toning. They need a little bit better ability to hold things, not hold it in, but to be able to hold and process in a more quiet way. So I know this video is maybe a little shorter than my usual ones, but I just wanted to give you this distinction, this cross reference, because this is the way I think, when we're learning about herbs, if you can compare, if you can always think of, have like two plants that you can compare and contrast, like, in this case, is this person holding tension, or is this person just vomiting their tension out all over everyone? That is such a clear distinction that can help you remember these plants. And then you can think about all of the other things that I've mentioned in this talk to help you choose which one is the right one. I will say this, you can blend them together. There are people that do a little bit of both, or maybe there's a case where there's tension in the muscles and, that overflow through the mouth. So you can certainly blend these together. There's no reason why you can't. But certainly, if you're looking for a specific differential diagnosis, or you're really trying to specifically come up with one plant as a spirit ally, I think those indications should be helpful for you. So thank you again for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see y'all again soon.